The silent observers, the crystal spires of the Kethran home world, stretched toward 3 crimson suns, their surfaces reflecting the light in patterns that had remained unchanged for millennia. Deep within the central tower, High Arbiter examined the latest survey reports with his 6 primary eyes, while his secondary pair monitored the chamber's other occupants. The Kethron Collective had governed this sector of the galaxy for over 10,000 cycles, and in all that time they had perfected the art of peaceful expansion. Unlike the barbaric empires that had risen and fallen throughout galactic history, the Collective preferred integration over conquest. They would approach new civilizations with offers of technological advancement, medical knowledge, and protection from hostile forces. In exchange, these species would contribute their unique abilities to the greater whole. It was efficient, logical, and had resulted in a stable confederation of over 300 different worlds. General Vextai, whose metallic blue exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber's bioluminescent lighting, reviewed the tactical data streaming across his neural interface. His species had evolved from predatory hunters, but centuries of collective membership had channeled those instincts into strategic planning and peaceful problem-solving. The irony was not lost on him that his greatest victories now came through negotiation rather than warfare. The third planet of System J4471 shows clear signs of industrial civilization. Scholar Namara reported, her tentacles dancing over the holographic display. Population approximately 8 billion. They call themselves humans and their world Earth. Technologically, they appear to be in the early stages of interstellar capability. Zolthak's mandibles clicked in what other species had learned to recognize as contemplation. How early? They have achieved faster-than-light communication and basic fusion technology, Nimura continued. Limited spacefaring ability, mostly confined to their home system. From our observations, they possess nuclear weapons but have not deployed them in large-scale conflicts for several decades. Promising, General Vextai interjected. Species that learn to control their destructive impulses often make valuable collective members. What about their social structure? Complex, the scholar admitted. They organize into multiple competing nations rather than a unified planetary government. However, they have created several international organizations that suggest they understand the value of cooperation. Most intriguingly, they appear to have a strong drive for exploration and discovery. The High Arbiter rose from his meditation platform, his 3-meter height commanding the room's attention. Have they detected our observation probes? Negative. Our stealth systems remain uncompromised. However, their sensor technology is advancing rapidly. We estimate they will achieve detection capability within the next 50 cycles. Considered this information carefully. The collective's standard protocol was straightforward. Observe a developing civilization until they achieved basic interstellar capability. Then make formal contact through their most unified governing body. The process typically took several local years as the new species gradually understood the benefits of joining the collective. Initiate first contact protocols, he decided. Approach their largest international organization. Offer them our standard integration package, medical technology, clean energy solutions, and defensive capabilities. In return, we request access to their cultural diversity and any unique innovations they may have developed. 3 standard days later, the sleek Kethron diplomatic vessel emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Earth's solar system. Its arrival triggered every deep space monitoring station humanity possessed. Within hours, the The message had reached the United Nations headquarters in New York, where an emergency session was called to address what would later be remembered as the most significant moment in human history. Secretary General Maria Santos stood before the assembled delegates, her hands trembling slightly as she held the translated message. The universal translator technology the aliens had provided was itself a demonstration of their advanced capabilities. "Greetings, people of Earth," she read aloud, her voice echoing through the packed assembly hall. "We are the Kethron Collective, representatives of the peaceful species of this galactic sector. We have observed your remarkable progress and believe you are ready to join our Confederation of Worlds." The hall erupted in dozens of languages as delegates processed the reality of first contact. Some called for immediate acceptance, others demanded caution, and a few suggested the message was an elaborate hoax. The collective offers advanced medical technology that will eliminate most diseases, clean energy systems that will solve your environmental challenges, and protective capabilities that will ensure your world's safety, Santos continued. "In return, we ask only that you contribute your unique perspectives and innovations to our shared knowledge." Dr. Alina Volkov, the United Nations chief xenobiologist, had been studying the alien message for hours. Something about its tone troubled her, though she couldn't articulate exactly what. The offer seemed almost too generous, too perfectly designed to appeal to humanity's current struggles. "What concerns me," she told the Emergency Scientific Committee, "is not what they're offering, but what they assume about us. They present this as if we're children being invited to sit at the adult table." Professor James Harrison, an expert in interstellar law, despite the fact that no such field had existed a week earlier, nodded thoughtfully. "The language suggests they've done this before, many times. It reads like a form letter." Meanwhile, in a secure facility buried beneath the Rocky Mountains, Commander Sarah Chen was having a very different conversation. The tall, sharp woman had spent the last 15 years working on projects that didn't officially exist, preparing for scenarios that most people considered science fiction. "Sir, we need to consider the possibility that they're not as benevolent as they claim," she said to Admiral James Park via encrypted video link. "Any species that's absorbed 300 others either has incredibly good luck with cooperative neighbors, or they've perfected a method of making resistance seem pointless." Admiral Park, a veteran of conflicts most people would never know about, understood Chun's concerns. "What do you recommend?" "We accept their invitation for talks, but we keep our real capabilities hidden. Let them think we're exactly what they expect, a young species impressed by their technology and eager for their guidance. And if they prove hostile," Chun's smile was sharp as winter steel, "then they'll discover that humans are very good at learning from our enemies' mistakes." The formal response from Earth came 72 hours later, in diplomatic language that could have been written by any bureaucracy in human history. The United Nations accepted the collective's invitation for further discussions. A meeting was arranged on neutral ground, the collective's diplomatic station in the Proxima Centauri system. As the human delegation prepared for humanity's first interstellar journey aboard a Kethron transport vessel, few realized they were walking into a process that had been refined over millennia. The collective had turned integration into an art form, and they had never encountered a species that didn't eventually see the wisdom of joining their peaceful confederation. What they didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this possibility far longer than anyone suspected. Deep in classified facilities around the world, projects that had been theoretical for decades suddenly became urgent priorities. The human delegation heading to Proxima Centauri carried more than diplomatic credentials. They carried the hopes and carefully hidden strengths of a species that had never learned to surrender without a fight. High Arbiter Zelthak reviewed the acceptance message with satisfaction. Within a few cycles, Earth would become the collective's 301st member world, and another young species would benefit from the wisdom of their elders. It would be, he was certain, just like all the others. He could not have been more wrong. Asterisk. The Awakening Protocol Commander Sarah Chen stood in the center of what appeared to be an empty asteroid in the belt. But appearances had always been humanity's greatest weapon. Behind walls of camouflaged metal and rock lay Project Looking Glass, the most classified military installation in human history. For 20 years, a select group of scientists, engineers, and strategists had been preparing for the day when humanity would no longer be alone in the universe. The command center hummed with quiet efficiency as dozens of technicians monitored systems that officially didn't exist. Massive holographic displays showed not just Earth's solar system, but detailed maps of nearby star systems gathered by stealth probes that had been launched decades ago under the cover of deep space research missions. Admiral Park is requesting an immediate briefing, announced Lieutenant Alex Stone, whose youthful appearance concealed one of the sharpest tactical minds in the service. The diplomatic mission to Proxima Centauri launches in 6 hours. Sarah nodded, activating the secure communication array that connected Looking Glass to similar hidden facilities on Earth, Luna, and Mars. Within moments, the faces of humanity's secret guardians appeared on her screen. Admiral Park looked exactly as tired as she felt. Dr. Alina Volkov appeared to be broadcasting from the UN building, while Captain Marcus Rivera transmitted from the Lunar Naval Academy, which trained officers for a fleet most people didn't know existed. Status report. Admiral Park requested, without preamble. Ghost Fleet is at full readiness. Captain Rivera reported. 150 vessels of various classes, all equipped with the new drive systems and stealth capabilities. Personnel have been training in deep space for the past 18 months under cover of asteroid mining operations. Dr. Volkov leaned forward in her transmission. I've been analyzing every piece of data the Kethrans have provided. Their technology is impressive, but it's also predictable. Everything they've shown us follows logical, efficient patterns. No redundancies, no backup systems that don't serve an obvious purpose. Meaning, Admiral Park prompted, meaning they think like engineers, not warriors, Sarah interjected. Every system optimized for its intended function, but probably vulnerable to uses they haven't considered. It's the mindset of a species that hasn't faced serious resistance in a very long time. Lieutenant Stone brought up a tactical display showing the Kethron diplomatic vessel that would soon carry humanity's representatives. We've had passive sensors locked onto their ships since it entered the system. The power signatures match our projections, but more importantly, we've identified at least 12 different communication arrays. They're in constant contact with their home base, Captain Rivera observed, probably reporting everything they see, which is exactly what we want. Sarah smiled grimly. Dr. Volkov, how did they react to our initial response? Exactly as expected. Polite acknowledgement, slight condescension disguised as encouragement. They're clearly running this through a standard protocol. I'd bet credits to Carbon that they have a manual somewhere titled Integration of Primitive Species or something equally charming. Admiral Park studied the data streams flowing across his screen. What's the assessment of their military capabilities? Captain Rivera consulted. His tactical analysis, based on the energy signatures and mass readings of their diplomatic vessel, we estimate their warships are probably about 30% more powerful than our current fleet. However, that's assuming conventional tactics and head-to-head engagements, which we won't be using, Sarah added. The Kethrans think they're dealing with a species that just learned to leave its home system. They have no idea that we've been exploring and mapping this region for decades. Lieutenant Stone activated another display, this one showing the hidden observation posts humanity had established throughout local space. We have monitoring stations in 17 systems, all disguised as natural phenomena or space debris. We've been watching Kethron patrol routes and communication patterns for 3 years. 3 years. Dr. Volkov looked surprised. We detected their observation probes in 2387. Admiral Park explained. We just made sure they didn't detect our detection. Sarah's team has been preparing for this contact ever since. Sarah walked to the main display, which showed a 3-dimensional map of local space. Red dots marked known Kethron positions, while blue dots showed human assets. The truth is, we've been studying them longer than they've been studying us. We know their patrol schedules, their communication protocols, and most importantly, their blind spots. What about their claimed 300-member species? Dr. Volkov asked. That's a lot of potential enemies if this goes badly. Actually, it might be our greatest advantage, Sarah replied. Think about it from a historical perspective. How many empires have collapsed because they grew too large to govern effectively? The Kethrans may have perfected peaceful integration, but that doesn't mean all their member species are happy about it. Captain Rivera nodded thoughtfully. We've identified at least 30 different ship designs in their fleet compositions. That's not the mark of a unified military doctrine. It suggests they're using whatever each member species contributes rather than standardizing equipment. Diverse capabilities, but potentially incompatible systems, Lieutenant Stone added. And if our psychological profiles are accurate, many of those species probably joined the collective because they saw no alternative. Admiral Park studied the tactical projections. What's your recommendation for the diplomatic mission? We go in exactly as they expect, Sarah said. A small delegation of impressed primitives, grateful for the attention of their galactic elders. Dr. Volkov will ask lots of basic questions and seem amazed by their answers. Meanwhile, she'll be gathering intelligence on their technology and political structure. And if they try to pressure us into immediate integration, we stall, Dr. Volkov replied. Claim we need time to prepare our population, establish the necessary infrastructure, convince our various governments, all perfectly reasonable requests that will buy us months to fully assess the situation. Sarah activated a final display, showing force deployment plans that had been refined over years of preparation. During that time, the Ghost Fleet will be positioning assets throughout their local space. If negotiations fail, we'll already be in position for what they'll consider impossible, a coordinated strike against multiple targets across dozens of light years. They'll never see it coming, Captain Rivera agreed. According to their own data, no species in collective history has ever launched an offensive operation during integration talks. They'll be completely unprepared for asymmetric warfare. Lieutenant Stone looked up from his tactical console. Commander, we're receiving updates from the advanced reconnaissance teams. The Kethrans are bringing a full diplomatic complement to Proxima Centauri, scientists, cultural specialists, military observers, and integration coordinators. It's a complete first contact package, or an occupation force disguised as diplomats, Sarah observed. Admiral, I recommend we activate the full Ghost Fleet, not for immediate action, but for readiness. If the Kethrans are as peaceful as they claim, they'll never know we're there. If they're not, Admiral Park nodded slowly. Authorized. Captain Rivera, bring all vessels to alert status. 2. Dr. Volkov. I want continuous reports on everything you observe during the talks. Commander Chen maintained communications blackout, except for emergency protocols. As the secure transmission ended, Sarah stood alone in the command center, surrounded by the tools humanity had built in secret. Outside the asteroid's camouflaged hull, the void of space seemed peaceful, but she knew that appearance was deceptive. Somewhere out there, the Kethron Collective was preparing to add another species to their confederation. Confident in their proven methods and overwhelming technological superiority, they were about to learn that humanity had spent decades preparing for this moment, and humans had never been very good at following other people's scripts. The diplomatic mission launching in a few hours would determine whether first contact led to peaceful coexistence or something far more dangerous. Either way, humanity would face it on their own terms. Asterisk.